what when Jared and I were coming back from Kansas, they took pictures and they're sending us pictures of just
recycling shop,
cameras and clothes and everything else out front. And I was like, well, at least you didn't see the box blinds.
Gotta have to ship that.
Delivered to an offsite location.
Yeah, I sent those directly to the farm. I'll just get them there.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, it's almost food plot season, Jared, and Deer Grow is one of those products that has really changed the way that we plant food plots and the success we've seen from them.
No doubt. I've been, trying to plant food plots my entire whitetail hunting career, which is a little shorter than yours. But the minute that I started, or that I realized that I could get Deer Grow back into some of these remote plots where I couldn't get lime or fertilizer, especially in the 50-pound bag, format. Mm-hmm. So everything was changed. I could get into these spots moving forward with a backpack sprayer, and that's since escalated to these 40 or 60 gallon sprayers, and we're doing upwards of 5 to 10 acre food plots just with Deer Grow and having phenomenal success.
Yeah, and I mean, with the price of fertilizer, lime, diesel, everything this year, I mean, what better way to get in there and grow a successful food plot at about a third of the cost? Check out Deer Grow at deergrow.com. And we're back.
Hey,
HUNTR Podcast, episode 87, as Nick continues to keep us in line.
Yeah, man.
Nick, this is like your, 8th podcast?
I think.
Nick, let's just take a minute. Dude, you're killing it, man.
Yeah.
I would say just to any viewers, like anybody who's seeing anything on TikTok.
Well, I was going to say, Nick is HUNTR TikTok.
Yeah, dude, Nick is behind the scenes and probably doesn't get enough credit, so.
I can barely log into that.
He's not single as of recently.
Oh, that's right. We can't even advertise, not available. Is it official yet?
It is.
Where do you put that official now at your age? Like, it used to be Facebook official. Is it still Facebook official?
I think that's the end all. That's where people are
going. You can't be TikTok official, can you?
It's not even Facebook anymore. That's kind of like died. Now you're just official. There's no social media official.
How's anybody know?
I guess you just post together. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, are you going to have a shared account soon?
Nah. I hope not.
Yeah, you guys are not in an open relationship, right?
No.
As far as you know.
As far as I know. Yeah.
That seems to be the way, dude, things are just more fluid these days. There's no more Facebook official. It's just kind of officially, unofficially official.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But Nick is an attractive man, and he's sitting back there behind
He's
the
obviously
laptop
tech savvy. More tech savvy than we are.
Anyways, had to give you that props here again.
Good job, man.
Boys, appreciate it.
Well, it is August 4th again. If you listened to last week, we had Don Higgins on the podcast.
So this morning. You listened to it last week, but we had him on this morning.
Mind blown. I still got COVID brain.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And so this would be, I don't know, sometime in mid-August. You're listening to this. We're like 2 weeks away from velvet season in Kentucky.
That's right. You are going first. And I'll be elk hunting in a month.
Wow.
From when this airs.
Let's just say I hope I'm more prepared 2 weeks from now when you're listening to this than I am right now.
Well, I mean, dude, I think both of our wives would say we've spent enough money recently that if we're not prepared.
I know. My wife's probably thinking this COVID thing's just a trick so I can go out and plant my food plots without them around.
That's got to be. Dude, there's, that's funny. Both you and I, our wives sent us pictures of like all the stuff that we like. Trail cameras.
Oh my, dude! There's a
new boots, new
camo,
box blinds.
Yeah, I've got to go pick box blinds up.
Seed.
Yeah, business write-off.
All the stuff you need.
Business write-off.
Yeah.
Well, today's gonna be a pretty cool one. Not that it's not ever cool with the HUNTR Podcast, but today's a pretty cool one. So we've got Bill and Tyler Jordan from Realtree on, which is maybe a first father-son podcast for us?
Yeah, probably.
Very cool.
Certainly not the last.
Certainly not the last. No. And I think it's going to be a really cool discussion. A couple of things. Obviously, father-son thing. We're taking our dads to Kansas this year.
Yeah.
And I know that Tyler and Bill have a really good, tight relationship, as do we with our dads. And, talk a little bit maybe about how we all got into hunting, with their influence. And then, I think also just, we kind of talked about it here pre-podcast, Bill's the OG. I mean, we talked about TNN, man. It was
I don't even know what TNN is. You guys were saying earlier, I'm like, yeah.
I mean, dude, anybody that's listening to this in my age and probably up remembers Sunday nights at like 7:30 Eastern time.
Is that like a channel? TNN was a network?
Yeah, TNN, I think eventually now it's CMT.
Country music.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was country music, the Nashville network, TNN. And, Sunday evenings,
It's always on
prime time.
when I get my oil changed. I always have that CMT on.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Prime time. It was outdoors and Realtree Outdoors. Boulder, and that's where probably people saw Michael for the first time, Waddell. Probably saw Nick and those guys, David Blanton. I mean, this is the stuff that you remember, things like Realtree Monster Box. Like that is what resonates with us as like hunters from like our nostalgia days type of thing.
Yeah.
And so now, we've got Bill and Tyler on to kind of talk about like, what are they into now? Now you've got road trips and you've got obviously Realtree evolving as a company. And so, yeah, it's a cool thing to see and talk to them about their dynamic, not only from a business standpoint, but from, a father-son personal hunting aspect, because I think everybody listening to this has some father figure, involved in getting them into hunting and the outdoors, and also just kind of think about some of this journey type stuff, because we've beat on it so much about where is the industry right now. What content is out there? What's the industry doing? What are these clicks?
And we're saying this from, a fairly short, glimpse in time.
Sure.
You've been in the industry maybe 15, 20 years.
15.
At the very most.
Yeah.
And Bill's, I don't know exactly how old Bill is, but I'd venture to say he's got at least 40 years in the industry under his belt, at least. He'll tell, he's probably nodding his head there as he can hear me. But, so excited to grow our knowledge and to hear more about kind of our roots as an industry, where we came from. I
want to hear their opinions too. I mean, this is one of the pinnacle companies in the hunting space. Where are we going here? And let's even dive deeper on the camo side for them. Look at what has changed in the last 2 decades. At one point, there were 2 names that everybody talked about. They're one of them.
Yeah.
Now there's a bunch of names in that category.
Yeah.
So how are they evolving in that? And, where do we go as an industry? Is there something to be worried about with this industry in the direction that we're heading even? I don't know. Not sure.
More optimistically. Yeah. We're stoked just to get to know these guys.
Yeah, I more want to just hear stories about big bucks and Realtree. So
let's get them on.
Cool. Bring them in.
Bam. Can you guys hear us?
Got you.
All right.
Awesome.
So you could hear our opening, all right?
Yes, we did.
Well, it makes me feel really old.
No, come on, Bill.
I was afraid of that.
I'm messing with you.
How accurate was Jared's 40 years in the industry, though?
You're right on. Realtree's been out 36 years.
There you go. Look at that.
Your numbers are pretty good, and I tell you what's kind of neat, just listening to you guys open up. But I love hearing about you guys going hunting with your dads. We're family people and always have been. And interesting enough, I got started. Everybody said, "Well, how'd you get into the hunting industry?" Well, it started when I was 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, going with my dad hunting and fishing. And, and you guys have similar backgrounds. And so a lot of that stuff carried over for me with my dad. And, Tyler's my best buddy out there in the woods right now. And I have even though I'm an older dad, I have a 16-year-old daughter that loves the outdoors, along with a 13-year-old son.
That's awesome.
Starting all over again.
Yeah.
Are you the oldest, Tyler?
By far.
So of 3 then?
I'm 30. My sister's 16.
Yep.
And my brother's 13.
All right. Well, you're splitting the gap. I'm 29 and Jeremy's 38.
38.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
38.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So dad's starting all over again with 2 youngins, but they love the outdoors and getting ready for bow season. So.
Well, I guess let's stick on that a little bit, Bill, because I'm, I've got a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old of my own. They both been hunting. Both of them killed their first buck over the last couple years. How do you think, or what do you feel, I guess, in terms of changes have occurred now, having your 13 and 16-year-old in versus, when Tyler was their age, essentially?
Very similar in a lot of ways. Tyler clung to me, wouldn't let me out of the house when he was 4, 5, 6 years old, just wanting to tag along. And so I'm sure you guys did the same thing with your dads, and and your dads probably did it with their dads. So, it was really, it's an easy thing for us. And, Tyler really got him started off turkey hunting years ago, and he tuck up next to me, and we learned how to be still, quiet, not move. And, he picked it up pretty well. And then obviously the whitetail hunting, just a lot of fond memories. just teaching him. And I'm sure you guys are doing the same thing with your kids. And, so the aspect of my life's kind of come full circle where I got taught by my dad. And it gives me a lot of pleasure to, teach my kids and others.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's been interesting for me, obviously there's a lot more challenges now, whether, it's electronic devices or just, society in general. I mean, we're coming out of a 2+ year COVID spell of like, what do we do in society? For me, I remember following my dad around and, it was, looking at tracks, looking at scrapes, looking at rubs, understanding where, there's white oaks dropping and stuff, and not saying that we don't do that, but, we've advanced now to where it's like we're out hanging cameras and we're checking box blinds and things like that.
It's certainly leveled the playing field, I think, and that the older generation has, a lifetime of, like you said, reading sign and just in the tree experience that's irreplaceable. But the younger generation has knowledge and access to these tools that, I mean, some people would argue make it unfair, but at the very least level the playing field. And it's interesting how it creates a dynamic. I know with me and my dad and with you and yours, I assume it's the same with you guys, is that I'm almost, while my dad's teaching me, well, here's how we did it. And for me, it's my uncle just as much as my dad. This is how we do it. I'm reading this sign, and this is what we do. And why, as much as I appreciate that stuff and know that it's important, I am also bringing cell camera technology to the table, right? These unbeatable. I've got these saddles I can go out and hang on the spot, and so it's interesting to. It's a cool dynamic between the two generations, or even three. To be able to teach each other, and I've really enjoyed that. And so to the point now where the example here is my dad has never hunted the Midwest. Right, he's killed several big deer, and he owns the farm that I hunt on in eastern central Ohio. But I'm taking him for the first time, and so Jeremy's dad's come with us before, but this will be my dad's first Midwestern deer hunt.
Yep, in Kansas.
And so for the guy that got me into hunting, like it's what an honor to be able to take him out and expose him, with the technology and the new bows that I've got him set up with in a state like Kansas. It's like. Yeah, full circle moment for me. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know for me too, like I didn't grow up as much on the trail camera stuff, versus like my little brother and sister. They grow up and we watch it. We'll wake up every morning and be looking at trail cameras.
And go to bed every night looking at them.
I know. Yeah. Wake up in the middle of the night and look at them.
Yeah.
We'll be in the blind looking at them.
Yeah.
But like it was just, I don't know, that kind of hit it for me perspective wise, growing up with him. We were always, he taught me how to look at sign, scrapes, rubs, especially for, bow season when I was 15, 16 years old. But now you have this generation, not that it's a bad thing, but there's definitely, there's more tools now that can make it a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but it's just different than how we did it.
It is.
That younger generation is just not learning the exact same way. The way my little brother and sister learn me.
I agree with that. Back in the day, we didn't have a choice but to read the signs in the woods, and
that's it.
When I used to do a lot of seminar stuff, deer in September are different than deer in December or January. Their habits and how they transition over to different foods, and being able to read those woods, and anything from scrapes, rubs early on. Not that today's hunters don't do that. But, you kind of find yourself a little bit. And let me tell you something. I'm very keen and avid on enclosed blinds, for scent and everything else. But at the same time, the younger generation, if that's all they're doing, they're just not learning the skill of hunting.
100%.
We make it a little bit easier for them. And that's nothing wrong with that. I do it myself. And nothing like on a cold, windy day sitting in a redneck or whatever your favorite blind is. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
Today's kids, I wish we could spend more time teaching them the sure enough basic skill, the woodsman's. I used to call it the woodsman's skills.
It's the woodsman skills. Yeah, that's exactly what. And I mean, I still, I think turkey hunting, first of all, is a great way to do it with the kids, right? Because you can set up in a blind with decoys and stuff, but at the end of the day, you're still always listening. Maybe you got to move and pivot spots to get around that gobbler, and you're following tracks. Like those are the opportunities that you can't avoid not having woodsmanship at that point, because frankly you're going to fail.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think for me, that's why I was very thankful. Like turkey hunting is honestly my favorite. Everybody assumes it's whitetail, but I grew up 3 or 4 years old sitting with him turkey hunting in the woods, and teaches you how to be still, how to be patient. Something that, maybe kids this generation don't really know a whole lot about, or it's a different game. I know about, like, just with Colton and Grayson, like having to sit and wait, even when it's an evening hunt, you wait till dark. It's
it's a lot
for them to sit there for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
Especially when you aren't seeing anything.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. I used to sit all day and see maybe one deer and be thankful.
Yeah.
That these kids, they don't have that instant gratification. It's like, oh, I'm not going tomorrow.
I know. I mean, every evening out with my kids, I've got an entire backpack full just dedicated to like snacks, otherwise we're not making it till dark.
Hey, snacks, drinks, and your phone to play games on. You're there.
That's right.
That's it.
Yeah, the iPad.
Yeah. It's so, and it is such a fine line, right? Because, the unfortunate thing is for most kids, like, if you let them get to that 9, 10, 11-year-old time frame without getting them in the woods, it's probably too late, or it's going to be really hard at this point to bring them back in. And there's certain kids that just have it. Frankly, my youngest, he's 6. Since the time he was 4, I could have probably put a crossbow in that kid's hands and he would have went out and killed one. My oldest took a little bit more coaxing. He wants a little bit more involved, and that's fine. But if I don't take the effort to, I won't say push them into it, but at least, a really firm encouragement, if you just let them not go, they're never going to go.
Totally get it. I totally understand it.
No, we kind of deal with the same thing with them, although they love it. And I think these kids now have so many options and opportunities to do other things.
Sure.
Instead of going to sit for 3 or 4 hours a day.
We've talked about that a lot, Tyler, because, when Jeremy and I were growing up, I know at least I wasn't allowed to like legally hunt until I was 12.
Me either.
And so I was going with my dad. Before that, it was duck hunting was the easiest thing, because my dad would go duck hunting and I would tag along, and every once in a while he'd let me shoot my shotgun at the end of it just to empty the rounds or whatever. And, for me, it was kind of that not being allowed, or that having to wait.
It was anticipation.
That ultimately, and I think still carries over to this day. There's a reason that August and September are my favorite. It's because I know soon I'm going to be, but I also understand that there's a lot more distractions for kids these days, I think, and not necessarily healthy ones. And so that fact makes me kind of more in favor of, how do you get the kids exposed or involved earlier, whether it's box blinds or crossbows or, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I would agree. I think like you said, August and September are my favorite for the same reasons yours are, probably. Like going up there this week, spending times laying out the stands, going in the next week, putting up 12 or 15 sets, getting ready for bow season.
The anticipation, man, it's just a wave. We ride it right into the season.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Seeing all these deer in velvet, going to scout last week, sitting in the blind, sweating our butts off. But to me, that's the most fun aspect of it, more so than getting in a tree. We all love shooting something, but the prep work and all the time and energy we spend during the summer with food plots, I mean, that's something that's a huge part of what we do.
I'll be honest, dude. Deer season is stressful for me. Like August and September is a ton of fun, and I'm really jacked about it. When opening day hits, I feel like I'm late. I'm pressure. Like, I'm late to the stand. I got to do this or so. The pressure is on essentially. And I have to remind myself to slow down and enjoy it.
You've got what 8, 10 good weeks, and then it goes downhill pretty fast after that.
Yeah. Well, and we try to offset that by extending our season. Essentially, Jeremy and I recently started, mule deer hunting, which unfortunately we're going to miss out on this year. But bringing it forward, and those are kind of like lower pressure hunts, because it's you don't have as much information or history or of a relationship with those deer necessarily. It's just fun to go out. We don't have to sit in a stand for hours and hours. It's just a chase. It's
sun up to sundown chasing.
Break us in for the season, and then that has been a nice, I think, transition into whitetail deer hunting for the rest of the season. So we need to do more of that. But
yeah, a lot of times, with my kids, and you guys do the same thing, just listening to you and knowing a little bit about you guys. But I always tell my kids, y'all talk about August, September before season open up. That's when I always tell our kids, that's when your game plan starts.
Yeah.
Whether you play baseball, football, or whatever your sport is, or anything, volleyball, there's a game plan that goes into it. And so, we try to prepare my young kids and everybody is different. But I try to develop that game plan and then try to carry that game plan each and every day before the next hunt. What am I going to do? Where am I going to sit? What's the wind direction?
Yep.
So the thought process and that gamesmanship's on with that animal.
Yep.
And so, we really spend a lot of time with our kids just trying to get their head into the ball game.
Yep.
We're getting them there slowly but surely.
Yeah, slowly but surely.
Slowly but sure. Yeah, and that's, and again, I think that's where the August, September kind of fun, lightheartedness, like it really, and it is, and I would hope if you're ever around those people that just radiate like excitement about whitetail season, like just get around them in August and September, and it's contagious. It'll rub off real fast, and you'll be pretty antsy for it here quick.
I'll agree with you. I tell you, my 13-year-old son, like everybody's sons or daughters, play sports and they're into it. But he's gotten with me this year. I've seen a transition from a year or two ago. I go help you feed protein feeders.
Yep.
This year, Dad, when we going?
Mm-hmm.
That anticipation of I said, yeah, grab that 40-pound bag and put him on 30. Hey, I'll watch you today. He's big enough to do it. I said, I'll drive and you put him out.
There you go.
But it's a fun deal, and we're doing that obviously all year long since the spring. But I've seen his engagement just really step up.
Yep.
Yeah.
And want to be involved.
And I think what's worked for him too, what Dad always did with me, I think I shot my first deer when I was 16 with a bow,
Mm-hmm.
but Dad never pressed me on wanting me to do it. He always wanted me to ask and get involved, like to show initiative.
Mm-hmm.
And with Colton, I think it was just maybe a month ago, he's asking for a bow.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like,
now he's had a bow, but he didn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what we talked about earlier. Hey, I'm encouraging you to do this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now he's asking.
He's had
There
a bow,
you
but
go.
now he's like, man, I want the new Hoyt. I've been online looking at the new
There
Hoyt.
you go.
I'm like, all right, well that's
I'm saying
awesome.
ching, ching. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Well, and that is and it is so hard because I've gone back and forth. My wife hunts, fortunately, so like we both kind of get like, hey, listen, there's a limited time to get out there and do this, but there's certain days where I'll ask them and they're like, yeah, I don't want to go out, and I'm like, that's fine, I'm gonna go hunt then. That Dad's gonna finally get a chance in the stand, but most of the time, one of the two of them will be up for it, and sometimes that little bit of sibling rivalry kind of works in our favor. Like, if the other one has been seeing deer and is on deer, then next one finally says, you know what, it's my turn, I'll go this time. I'm like, all right, man, you're up.
Yeah.
No, we do the same
We
thing.
do the exact same thing. That's been kind of the fun between those two. They have a little bit of a sibling rivalry about who's claiming what spot to go to. Which,
Now, the unfortunate, I say unfortunate, it is fortunate, but they all pick out their deer beginning part of the year, and they won't let the other one go to that stand.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to hunt Bruno. No, we're going to hunt Brutus, So, we do, this is crazy, but I do pick a deer for them. I say, which one do you want? And so it kind of encourages them, hey, I'm going to stay after that one deer.
Yep.
So it's just part of the teaching process. It's fun.
yeah.
Yeah, I like that. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Stealth Cam.
Dude, where would we be without our cell cams?
I would definitely be divorced at this point.
Yeah, I hear that.
I mean, the fact is I spent more time checking cameras than I actually did hunting prior to cell cameras. Now, at least, my wife can enjoy me being in the comfort of my own home, buried in my phone, checking those pictures.
Yeah, 100%. And dude, when it comes to trail cameras and definitely cell cameras, reliability is, I think, the number one thing that we're looking for. Stealth Cam just has a long reputation of reliable cameras, and ultimately that is the most important thing to us. They have to work.
In terms of reliability, there's not a better camera on the market than Stealth Cam, whether you're talking about the Fusion X, the Reactor, or the DS4K Transmit. And most of them are under $200.
Stealthcam.com. Check them out.
Kind of shifting gears a little bit, guys. Bill obviously been in the industry for a long time with this stuff. And Tyler, you're kind of now at the forefront of the company and seeing where this industry is going. I think one of the first things I kind of wanted to ask you guys about is, Bill, obviously, when I was growing up and in the 90s and even early 2000s, really there were two camo companies that we talked about, right? You guys are one of them. Tyler, obviously now that isn't the case, right? There's a bunch of different camo companies out there. I guess just maybe some takes back and forth, but how do you guys see Realtree kind of, I guess, responding to that or even shifting to this changing industry and environment?
Well, I think in any industry and anything that you're into, you got to be welcoming to those changes and adjust and move, and makes you think a little bit, makes you a little bit better as a company. And, I think in a way it's healthy that we have options out there again. And it's just a situation that, high-end apparel, we never really had that 30, 40, 50 years ago. Had good apparel.
Right.
But what I would call the high-end apparel and people doing research, trying to make a better garment and this, that, and the other. I think from a consumer aspect, I think that consumer's most deserving. You see certain things in the ski industry and other industries, as far as the technical type garments. So I think the industry has come a long way, from my early days of, 25, 30, 35 years ago when we first came out with Realtree. And then on the pattern aspect of it, it's not, there's been patterns for the last 35 years. It's just the notoriety of us in Mossy Oak, being in there, kind of came to the forefront. But we've always had patterns in the industry. And so the biggest trends that we kind of see a little bit, more the technical type garments, and marrying that with who's ever patterns, on it. So in a way, it's healthy for the industry to have those choices out there. Now, for us at Realtree, we welcome the challenges and choices, and it makes us better. Our business has been great all the way through COVID. We haven't missed a beat. So the industry is telling us, hey, we still liking you. We like what you're doing. We like your designs, like the way that you're going. And again, from a business perspective, we look at everything and how can we grow? How can we be better? I don't think any of us just sit around and saying, oh, we take it for granted. Every day, our men and women here, we think about what we need to do. How do we get better? What's the industry change is going to be? What does the consumer want? Listen to you guys earlier, way we watched outdoor programming 30 years ago is different today.
100%.
It's not even remotely the same, where you kind of grew up on TNN and following Realtree Outdoors or Jackie Bushman or whoever else, or Hank Parker and fishing and Roland Martin. Those days have changed. And so, and again, I think the outlets and the ways that we reach the outdoorsman, how you guys are reaching the outdoorsman, I think it's very positive.
Yeah.
We have so many challenges, as we all know, in the hunting industry, loss of land. People tell me, well, I can't tell you how many calls I have here in my hometown of Columbus, Georgia, and surrounding counties. We lost our land. We lost our lease. The subdivisions coming in. So I worry more about the industry that way than I do anything else, introducing young kids into the industry. And living on the East Coast, we're not on the coast, but on the east side of the country, I have seen the last 25, 30 years, land just evaporate, now shopping centers and houses.
Wow.
I worry more about our industry that way than I do anything else.
Yeah. And I think this is a little bit of a different take from that, but I agree with Dad on the camouflage side of things. I mean, things have definitely expanded, I would say, in the last 10 years. There's been a lot more companies in our industry, but like what I've always found growing up in this business is that competition is really good for everybody. Yeah. It's really good for the consumer. Like you said, I think it betters every company that we're associated with and other companies in our industry. I think the challenging thing for us is I'm kind of on the marketing side of things, and see that is, how do you go to market? How do you spend your dollar most efficiently? That's been, the challenge that we all ask ourselves every day. Yeah. And I know him and I discuss this frequently, is just, what is the most impactful for our brands and for our licensees?
Right.
So it's really kind of hard to navigate through that, because I think a lot of companies now that do spend money on some of these digital shows or television shows, they expect to see an impact. They want to see how that money is impacted immediately. And that's hard to gauge across the board. I don't think there's, but maybe just a few digital shows right now that you're like, man, that's a slam dunk.
Yeah.
It's all kind of just that blanket right now with digital and television. You still have to be on both. I think you still have to have a strong presence, but it's just about picking the right ones.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense, man. You're right. I mean, the fact is first of all, Bill, I'm glad that you highlighted kind of what the more or the bigger threat probably to our industry than competition within the business aspect, because I do think that's true. I think that one of the big things that we look at in terms of the media side, Tyler, is there are probably and it depends on what your business is, but like there are a handful of shows out there. Like for my other business, Deer Grow, like there's a handful of shows I know that if I invest in these guys, they're literally going to return my investment and then some. That doesn't mean that I won't advertise with other people that maybe aren't as clear of a returner, because I have to continue to just get the brand out there. Like there is an investment on my side without knowing that I'm going to get that dollar for dollar back. I think what, and Jared and I have kind of talked about this a few times, and I don't know how to answer the question, but, Bill, when it was TNN or even when Outdoor Channel and stuff first came out, right, there's a quality assurance check, right? There is a gut check to what is aired and what is put out to the mass hunting public. With the advent of YouTube and stuff, that's gone. Anybody can. I can literally show a deer that's a 2-year-old and say, "Yep, that's a 6-year-old buck." Who's there to tell me that it's not?
Right.
And that, and that almost is more. I don't know if I want to call it fear, but more concerning to me, especially as we get new hunters involved or the young kids who, like my kids, love YouTube and they find some great stuff on there. They also can trip on the wrong information and be like, "Well, Dad, I heard this," and I'm like, "No, that's bullshit. that's all right," Right. And so how do you counter that, or where do we go as an industry? And is it up to us to put those checks and balances in? Because we're all against the overarching regulatory part of tech, right?
I think the other big concern, and maybe more pressing in terms of like our not livelihood, but like, for us to be able to continue having a platform at all, is the fact. So a lot of these, digital platforms, you'd say that, oh, that's the one, a couple of these are worth their the money we want to, pay them to advertise there. Is like we're on these platforms, YouTube being the biggest, TikTok being another one. These are fairly liberal companies that have no problem just, we're nothing to them, and so it's like at any moment, that could be taken away. And I suppose the same is true from a network standpoint. I mean, you could say that about anything, but it just seems like it gets more and more volatile by the day. Across the board. I mean, did you even look at like our currency? The fact that like digital currency, cash doesn't exist anymore. I mean, run down all of these different examples. It's like any of it could just get taken away just like that, And so the risk from an advertiser standpoint is probably as high as it's ever been.
Yep.
No, I would say, like look at TikTok. TikTok, for whatever reason, we're like just a couple posts away from being banned on TikTok.
Well, dude, we just talked to Mark Drury last week, and Taylor got banned for. I mean, I don't know.
But we don't. If y'all saw the stuff that we get flagged for on there, like it's just a deer walking through a field. There's no shot. You don't hear an impact. There's no nothing. It's just regular content. But like, I don't know if somebody's going on there and flagging it, or I don't know what the deal is with it. But we've been struggling with that for.
Probably Toxie Haze.
Yeah. It's probably our competition. No, it's
guerrilla marketing.
But if our other networks like a YouTube, that's why we have the Realtree 365 app.
Yep.
Honestly, that app was created probably a little before its time. Just if that does happen, we do have a place to fall back on.
Exactly. I think that's super valuable.
Huge.
Paid network there. There's no telling. That could be of value any day now. So there's just no telling when they're going to pull the plug out from under us.
Well, I think it is of value right now, Tyler, in the fact that if let's say I'm a Realtree licensee, number one, I know I can go to Realtree 365 and all of that content has the potential to support me as a licensee, right? And then also, again, going back to this quality assurance or fact checking type of things, they're not just anyone is loading anything onto that platform, right? Again, there is a quality control measure there to ensure there's good stuff. And I'm not necessarily going to knock them, but like even think of some of the things that happen with like a Pursuit channel. Like there's a lot of stuff on Pursuit channel that I don't know if I'd be very proud of,
Well, you could say that about any channel.
Yeah, you can anymore.
I've seen lots of 2-year-olds killed on the Outdoor Channel that were called 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the evolution of where we're at.
I can also say who shot them and where they shot them, but I won't do that.
Yeah. For me too, like when I was in school at Ole Miss, and I probably had a close group of 13 or 15 of my good friends. I was one of only a couple to have network television. Like everybody thought I was weird that I had cable TV.
Yeah,
I don't have it.
That was just, 5 or 6 years ago. So if that tells you where and how far we've come as an industry. And
Yeah, you graduated before you were 25.
No.
Yeah.
We're going, if he's, no.
But it just kind of shows you that whole market of how we consume content has changed entirely.
And I think you'll still continue to see changes.
100%. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think there is still value in TV. I think that there is still value in print in the right places. And again, it's the hard part now is because digital is so prevalent, we expect to be able to measure everything. And the fact is we can't. Like we can't, if I put an ad in a deer hunting magazine, how do I know what that returned? Like you don't. You have no idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, say, the television thing, I think it's, I come from old school with this, but I still think it's a necessary thing for our industry, because there's a certain age group that, and I'll go 40 and younger, maybe the YouTube type thing and 20 teens, but there's still that group you still want to reach at 35 and on up
100%.
that grew up on television. So you just cannot walk away from it. And again, our industry, for us anyway, so many of our licensees, our friends, companies within our industry, they need the television.
Yeah. I think where it's beneficial for the consumer, in my opinion, is that, on television, you have 19 to 22 minutes to tell a full story. And that's just not very reasonable, considering how much time you spend really out there in the outdoors. And so that's where I think Winky has, he was kind of the OG in that regard. But, just that long story form of content, when somebody watches us in Kansas on a Realtree Outdoors episode on the Outdoor Channel, man, I remember there was one hunt, I was out there for like 21 days in all, that's summer, that's September, that's October.
Yep.
But, I remember reading comments online like, Tyler just shows up and kills these deer. And, I was just like, man, in reality, it was really hard.
Tyler, did you listen to Bill recapping killing that deer last year off that property that I think he leased it, right?
The one that he was sleeping?
They were sleeping out in the woods. He's out there for like 26 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched that. That's pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
But
I've done that.
Yeah.
We and I have a history. We've known each other forever, but I've stayed out all night before.
But that's where I like the digital side of things, is that it really kind of it paints maybe a fuller picture, and that it's not always killing giants too. So and that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But another problem I have as well on social media is like my little brother sees some of these comments and he doesn't. He's just kind of noticed some of the negativity. If you kill a big deer, or if you kill a deer that maybe in some people's opinion, maybe isn't old enough, or, didn't, man, it can be harsh out there.
So, let me interject that. Having a 16-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old son, the people that we all know in our industry who are good friends of mine that came along with us with TNN and even today with Outdoor Channel, but our industry sometimes can be very cruel. And I've got a 16-year-old daughter and a 13-year-old son. Tyler had to go through that transition of getting criticized because he was my son.
Everybody does.
But I'm so proud he's my son from the standpoint he's carrying that hunting heritage on. We all, our fathers, as we all talked about, our uncles got us started. I'm proud to get Tyler started. That's my role in life, is to teach them, whether it be baseball, softball, football, hunting, fishing, or whatever. And so many people are critical because, hey, he's so-and-so's son or daughter.
Yeah.
That drives me absolutely nuts. They just don't know. We need those young ladies and those young men in our sport. So I shielded my 16-year-old daughter, very, very attractive young lady, very, very good student, school, into sports and all this type stuff. But I try to really protect her on how much exposure she gets. But our industry needs that teenager.
They do.
We need that influence of saying, hey, it's okay if I go hunt and fish.
Yep.
But critical side of it for people in our own industry, they're so quick to criticize.
100%.
The way you look, the way you talk, the way you did something. So it discourages a lot of younger people getting into our business. Now, Tyler had to get a hard shell, as other friends and people that but I just kind of refuse to have my 16-year-old daughter or my 13-year-old son exposed to the negative side of it.
Yeah, well, I think another point of that too, a little bit different, but for anybody in this industry, I think we're all some people can be very critical about the size of a certain deer, not being big enough. And to me, that's a bunch of BS, man. Some of my best hunts, and I mean this, so I would take back some of my bigger deer for maybe some that are not quite as big, just for the overall experience of what I got to do. And it's hard to convey that to maybe a viewer or audience, but some people get so caught up on the size of a certain whitetail and having to shoot this age limit. I mean, I tell everybody, do what makes you happy here. Shoot what makes you happy. I mean, we have Realtree monster bucks, but if you watch monster bucks, there are plenty of 120, 130 inch deer.
140 inch deer, yeah.
There's a wide range of, monster deer. So I've always, kind of scouted that just a little bit, just seeing people get so caught up in rack size, because in reality, to me at least, that's just
it's your hunt. It's your hunt, whatever you want to make.
That's not everything.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, that's where you have to figure out either you're going to be kind of numb to the, absurdities outside of what people are going to say to you, or, you got to at least have tough skin to it. And it's because, I know we felt the pressure when we were going to actually film here. It's like, well, man, I could probably go out and kill, this buck that's 120 inches, but, I know I'm going to catch shit for it, ultimately. And it's like, I don't really care anymore. But for a while there, I did, and it was to the point where, it almost ruined the experience of hunting, because it's like, well, man, I could go kill that deer and I'd be happy with it, but I can just see the comments already. And the fact that we're at that stage in a hunting community, in a society, is crazy.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, and this, I have a very similar story with a friend of mine who lives in Tampa, but he had a lease in Georgia. And I think that the deer he took, I don't know, it may have been like a 3.5-year-old deer, but he had never shot a deer with his bow. And he's the kind of guy that posts everything to Facebook or Instagram and is always posting about his hunts or experiences. I remember he sent me a picture and I said, heck yeah, man, first bow hunt. That's awesome. I said, I haven't seen you make a post or anything about it. He said, well, man, I'm not going to do that. He goes, just the size and everything. I feel like I'll get ripped by my friends. And I'm like, man, what if we come to, as an industry overall, where, for somebody that should be celebrating and feeling joy for his first successful bow hunt, he has to feel that way. And it just, that, like, when I hear those kind of stories, that makes me sick inside probably more than anything 100%. For just our future.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Well, and I mean, we've heard it recently in kind of the opposite ways, whether it was Mark Drury or Bill Winke, and basically people saying, well, the only reason these guys kill big bucks is because they buy thousands of acres of land and they don't let anybody hunt it and da-da-da. And it's like, listen, ultimately, they kill big bucks. That is the most effective way. Yeah. But you know what? They're successful in life. Like, my goal is to take care of my family and to enjoy life and basically to hunt and fish, because that's what I want to do. And if I can go buy 1,000 acres of land somewhere because I'm successful enough to do it and enjoy unpressured whitetails, damn straight, that's what I'm going to do.
I think that spotlights the reality, is that, like, there's just a lot of jealousy coming through in those comments.
That's what it is.
And I realize that people are coming from different stages in life, different backgrounds. Like, not everybody is fortunate. And so that is a reality as well. But that also doesn't justify, I don't think, the lashing out, towards, like, your friend to say, that any one person's hunting experience is worse than another. The problem is we all know it's going to happen. Like, if he would have posted it on there, right, he probably would have caught some negative comments over it, which is crazy.
I think what breaks my heart with that more than anything is for the younger hunter, or for the guy that we're trying to get introduced into our industry, seeing those comments and feeling discouraged from saying, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm in over my head. I'm not going to get involved. Yeah. I think that's where I just have a, that's more upsetting to me than anything else, because I like introducing people and taking people for the first time. But for some reason, when people see a deer, you're going to have something.
Well, think about how crazy it is. That would be like saying, oh, I went out on wherever, Lake Fork in Texas, and I caught a 1-pound bass. It's like, who cares? Like there's 1-pound bass in that lake and you caught one. Great. And you threw it back. Awesome. But it's that same principle to saying, if I shot a 2-year-old, and it's crazy that we're at that level, and even worse that it is within our own brotherhood or community, right? It's not like there's some outside person saying, hey, you shot that 1-year-old, you should have let him grow up. No, it's some guy that's you don't even know, and who knows what his hunting success and background is.
I do think that while those comments don't phase, I don't think the four of us, like we're secure enough in like our hunting heritage or our experience to say like that guy's an idiot. Like I know what I'm doing here. I'm okay with that. On the flip side, I also know that like guys like us, and not to beat our chests at all, but like just the fact that we have a podcast, or that we've been hunting for however long, that you guys own Realtree, the fact that our words have so much power to be able to go back to those same people and say like, listen, that's awesome. The fact that you guys were able to do that, or that you're doing that with a family member, is huge, and I'm super impressed by that. Like that comment, I think, is so much more meaningful and 100%. Impactful than the sea of naysayers saying you shouldn't have shot that or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. You mentioned this just a minute ago, and me being the older guy in the room here, but you do go stages in your life. My early days, oh my gosh, I was shooting something and being very proud. If it's a 7-pointer or whatever the case may be. And then as you get old and you gravitate as an outdoorsman, you know what? I want to step it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go shoot. I'm gonna go get a little bit bigger deer. Well, through generations, I've had a lot of hunting situations in the falls, but I chose 25 years ago. You know what? I've done my 25 years of hunting this way. I'm gonna go after that bigger deer, and I get more pleasure out of passing stuff up and just seeing it. But my life has gotten into a point, if I see a big deer, fine. If I don't, fine.
Yep.
I may not even shoot one.
Yep.
But back in the day, I'd shoot one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But right now, it's my choice, and I'm very happy with it. But again, it goes back to kind of our original conversation. You guys are all over it, but it's our role to teach too. Is to teach ethical ways to hunt. Bring these young kids into the sport. Do the very best that you can as a mentor to those kids. And I hope that will always continue, because we have so many challenges. Y'all touched on it, all three of you, but we have so many challenges from the outside,
Mm-hmm.
in a fighting amongst ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That just drives me crazy. But you guys being young parents, your role, you'll see it for over the next 10, 15 years. And whether you got a 30-year-old or 10-year-old or 6-year-old, our role now is to teach.
Mm-hmm.
Best we can for our kids, and then that life cycle just continues.
And not to dive too deep in the rabbit hole, but one thing I'm thankful with my kids is I live in a rural school district, and so Harlan was 6 last year when he killed his first buck. Actually, no, he's 5. He's 5 last year when he killed his first buck, and he printed out a picture at home, and they took it and put it right on the homeroom door. Right on the door, posted it up there. Yeah. And it's awesome. Like, and every time he would walk by it, like he was so proud, because he was in kindergarten. How many kindergartners were killing, bucks? But there's a lot of kids that, I'm sure, and there's a lot of parents that are like, man, do I really want my kid going around saying that he's killing deer and stuff like that? And it's just, you think about it years ago, like I just feel like our lifestyle has changed to where somehow now, we're the outcast of the group. And it's like how that's possible with the number of hunters that we have and how important hunting is to conservation is kind of wild. And, I don't know if any of us let it get there as much as society just kind of pushed us there.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. It's definitely changed.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of unhappy people out there. Just, there just are.
We talk about it all the time.
Well, and the thing, what pulls that out of us, I think, is like, dude, we're like, man, if people aren't hunting, like, what are they doing? Because so much of our mental space is consumed by it, and so much of our joy comes from the entire year. And obviously we have priorities, marriage and faith and like whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But our core passion is hunting, and bow hunting whitetails specifically.
Yeah.
And I know that it's not for everybody. Not everybody can or should hunt.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's other things out there that people are just as passionate about. I'm sure of it. But I know how much joy it brings me, and it just makes me sad to see people on the other side just having no concept, no understanding, and not only no concept, but attacking us for it because they don't understand it, or are jealous of it, or don't have something themselves to fill them up, I guess. And that's kind of the way I see
and we're always
that's where I think those comments are coming from.
We're going to have those battles from external of the hunting population, right, that just don't understand what we do. the problem is, and we've been talking about it for years, is how do we change the narrative inside the hunting population? Because I fully understand that there'll be guys who, will only use traditional bows from the ground on public land, and that's just what they either have and or love to do. And guess what? More power to you, man. But there's also people who, my entire season is dedicated to, number one, getting my kids a deer. Number two is I want to kill probably a specific big buck. And if I end of the year and don't kill that big buck, my season was just as good. Like I had a blast. In fact, sometimes I worry that I'm going to kill a deer on the opening day and then I'm not going to be able to hunt that state the rest of the year,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think too, like on obviously the public land hunting has become super popular, which I'm a big fan of. I don't really miss many of the hunting public episodes, watch everything they do. Well, guess what? I will not be a public land hunter. Like that's just not going to be me. That's not the way I
because you've seen the other side. Yeah. You know how good it can be.
The grass is not very green over there.
No, I love what I love more than anything is we have a lease in Kansas. I love going out there. I know that property well. Same thing with our place here in Georgia. Nebraska is the exact same way. We have a ground out there that we lease. I love the flip side of that. But then you see people like, man, you need to hunt public land and really challenge yourself. Y'all, if you don't like what we do, it's not the hardest thing in the world. No, we've been super blessed, but there are a lot of challenges that present itself with what we do too. And that when I see those kind of comments, not just for me, but just for others that do it the way I do it, man, you shouldn't feel bad.
Yeah.
Well, and why is it trying to guilt you down to their level? Is that what it is?
That comment is rooted in like a mindset of like we hunt because it's hard. And I don't think that's the case. Like we embrace the challenge, but there's plenty of other impossible things, hard things to do that I choose not to do.
We go back to our furthest ancestors, and I guarantee every day they were trying to figure out an easier way to kill their dinner. Like, period. That is in our mentality. So, sure, nobody wants to shoot fish in the barrel, right? But the fact that you want to just do something because it's almost it's not like an adventure sport. That's not what you're trying to accomplish. Some extreme, skydiving or something like that. This is hunting. Like
I understand.
The goal is to be
where
successful.
they're coming from. And the few guys that are successful, that's super impressive.
For sure.
It's awesome.
I think it's incredible. Like you can't undervalue how cool, because I consume the content as much as anybody. I waste a lot of time on YouTube. But, I love what they do, but it doesn't mean it should take away from anybody else's experience on how they did it. As long as it was, legal and ethical to a point, the debate over a high fence is whatever. But, what we do on, trying to manage your own property, manage your own leases, visiting these places year after year, I get a lot of joy in that.
Well, that's what I was going to say, man. I think I almost feel bad for those guys because they don't get to experience the year-round efforts into, having the success. Like the reason that October we're successful or November we're successful is the 7 months before we've been doing TSI, we've been planting food plots, we've been running cameras, we've been doing everything that we can to make the best possible chance come in the fall. And we've had this conversation, besides shed hunting and scouting on the ground, what else are you going to do on public land? You can't manage public land. You can't do it.
Well, let me tell you, we do the whitetail thing 12 months out of the year.
That's it.
And I get so much joy out of that. We've talked about our kids, but taking my kids and getting them involved. And I tell my 13-year-old when he and I ride through our gate at our farm, and we don't have this humongous farm, and but when we drive through that gate, I feel like I'm in a whole other place.
100%.
And I drive down that drive and I look over here and there's some turkey and there's some deer. I'm teaching and I'm saying, look over here, the excitement and the joy that I get for him and for myself.
Yeah.
It's undescribable, but we do it. We're fortunate enough to do it 12 months out of the year.
Yeah. Well, dude, Jeremy and I have experienced that feeling, mine on my family farm and Jeremy on some farms that he's bought recently. We know that feeling. Just a freedom essentially is how I've described it in the past, is like the ability to do what you want with this piece of land. And
it's yours.
And as real estate agents, with our buyer clients, we almost know what they're looking for. It's like, and so when we go out on pieces of property with them, we're looking for that same thing. It's like, how do we, just like hunting, we want to bring people up and share that experience with them. Land ownership is kind of like the next level of that. And to combine the two through, Whitetail Properties is our brokerage. But there's plenty of them out there. That's our opportunity to do it.
And not to be mean to those people who make those comments about, oh, you need to be hunting public land and stuff. But frankly, you could never understand what it feels like to have your own land until you do. Like, you can try to imagine it, you can try to think about it, but until you literally have a piece of ground that tree is yours, this food plot is yours, this road is yours.
Dude, I've certainly taken it for granted too. Like, in more recent years, I've had to reflect and be like, for these past 10 years as a teenager, I've been like, oh, I've got these deer and I've got these cameras and these food plots, and like, I've had to check myself and realize, like, dude, a lot of people don't have that.
It's a labor of love.
Yeah. Well, you work at it. I mean, it's not that you show up and hey, let's go hunt today. You work at it 12 months out of the year.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the joy and the passion we all get being outdoorsmen, to enjoy that experience. And, our farm, if we're successful at our farm, we work at it. It's 12-month labor of love for us.
It's not by dumb luck at the end that there's success.
Yeah. And again, we enjoy, and getting to know you guys, but I enjoy taking my 16-year-old daughter's friends and my 13-year-old friends to share that experience with them.
Yeah.
And that's how these kids get involved with the outdoors. Man, that's pretty cool. I can go fish this afternoon, and hey, we're going to go ride to the farm and go see some deer and some turkeys. So that excitement, it just builds on positivity for our youth.
Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine the satisfaction, Bill, that you must feel like taking your 13 or 16-year-old out and having them harvest a big deer or whatever that success in the field is, not only having done the work on the farm, but having built a business like over, 30 some years, that ultimately culminated in you being able to purchase that piece of property and take your family out and do it. I think that's what Jeremy and I have really embraced, is like, man, we could go to public and hunt, and anybody can do that, and that's awesome. It's great that that's out there for people. But the challenge for us is like to build a lifestyle that we're able to produce income, to acquire properties, to be able to hunt at the highest level. It's like the whole thing is like a life game. It's like a purpose.
That's it.
Absolutely.
That we've embraced, wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I think everybody goes through those stages. Like obviously when I was in school in Mississippi, I didn't have any leases. I hunted, WMA ground all over, around Starkville.
I'm hunting public in Kansas this year.
Yeah, you're hunting public in Kansas.
Did I hear him say Starkville?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'm just he didn't say anything about Archery.
That's where the real Mississippi.
I wore this hat for a reason.
For your honor.
Don't worry, we'll edit that out. It's fine.
I'll just make sure that it's got mossy oak all around the logo there. So, but no, so like and listen, it was fun at the time. It was challenging. Yep. I was successful, but all of those things culminate in like, man, I want my own ground. Like that. I don't think that there are very many deer hunters who are honest with themselves. If you ask them and said, would you like to have your own piece of ground, that they would say, no, I'm good with public.
Yeah, I would check their sanity if they said, no, I'm just going to hunt public land forever.
Yeah.
If you ever have an opportunity to hunt other ground, it's not all bad.
Yeah.
They're out there, and God love them. They're stubborn old bastards. But, John.
Yep. Oh, Eberhard.
John Eberhard
is one for sure.
And like I said, God love him, is a stubborn old bastard, and he will hunt public until the day he dies.
Yeah.
But he's one of those guys that's found success on public land.
And he's found happiness with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. Yeah, and but
and Jeremy and I are like, good, more for you and me.
Yeah, but Eberhardt's also not going to be the guy who says, well, you guys suck for hunting private land.
Oh, sure he is.
No,
sure he is.
He has the options of it. He's just saying, go challenge yourself and hunt public land. And I get that.
It's in good sport, though.
Yeah. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Dude, where would we be without our Hoyt bows?
Probably shooting crossbows.
or a Matthews, yeah.
One and the same.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we love being Hoyt guys because you stand out. When you're in this room full of other people that shoot these other types of bows, I feel like the Hoyt guys just stick out.
Dude, it's just a legit bow. I mean, especially that carbon riser, man. I mean, I know that they've got several other aluminum lines as well, but for me, I'm shooting that RX5 in the carbon model. They've since come out with the RX7, and I can't tell you how much I love being a Hoyt guy amongst a sea full of Matthews guys. So we're out there, I think, proving them wrong, shooting 80 pounds and killing stuff.
Hey, man, if you want to get serious, get Hoyt. Yeah. But I mean, I think that when you start to look at that from an opportunity, and listen, it has been a huge shift in the landscape from an access standpoint. I mean, you're not going to be able to go and knock on many doors anymore. The way that leasing is, hell, in Ohio and Pennsylvania, it's $35-40 an acre to lease land, and probably not that good of land either. So, I mean, it has become a really tough thing for people who aren't able to afford their own property to own, even to just get private access to hunt. So they may be left with public, and there's some good public out there. But I'm supportive of them. I'm, go for it. Listen, if you can do it, if we can help you, if you want tips, you want to study a map, like, let's look at it, let's do it. But there's no reason to come back and say, well, the only reason these guys are killing big deer is because they hunt private land.
Yeah. I think, like where I've kind of evolved too is, and there's zero wrong with this. We kind of, and I think Realtree was we put a lot of outfitters on the map, in the early days.
Yep.
That was a big part of our television show was outfitters would, like us to come hunt so we could promote their business. Where I've kind of changed as a hunter is I just don't do as much outfit hunts as I used to do when I was younger. A big reason why there's zero wrong with it, but I love like going out to the Milk River, going to Nebraska, especially here. Like, this is the most fun to me.
It's your influence.
Yeah. So and I think that's where I've kind of changed, but there's, for people that do it and that's all they can afford to do. Maybe they don't have enough time to go and
100%.
That's the biggest thing too, is people don't have a week or 2 weeks of vacation time just to go and hunt deer on public land or even private land or a lease. So the outfitter may be the best option. So to each his own, and that's okay.
Well, and Jared and I will do it. Like I'm
going on a guided elk hunt this year, and my situation is I've only ever been on one other elk hunt, and it was with this exact same group of guys. It's my dad and two good friends of ours and a small family outfit out of Colorado. So the kid that was guiding us when I shot my elk was 16 when I was 15. And so now this is 15 years later. So, it may be the first guided hunt. I've done one other guided whitetail hunt, maybe
in Illinois a couple years,
8 or 10 years ago.
Yeah, probably
a while, but,
and we'll do one in Iowa when we draw, because again,
well, not a guided, but I mean, we have friends that are going to set
hook
us
up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause we just don't have time.
You need that local knowledge, man. I mean, there's all kinds of in between, like, there's a fully guided hunt, even to the level of, well, there's fences around this place where we hunt, and all the way down to literally just stumbling on public land. And there's it's not black and white. There's a huge range in between.
Yeah. And each are okay, and everything's okay. Like it's okay for
no doubt.
That's my biggest thing. It kind of goes back to people being critical, and people reading comments on Facebook that if they don't do things a certain way, they are not perceived as a real hunter.
I think it's super important to remember, Tyler, that like people hunt for all different kinds of reasons. And like this obsession with a mature whitetail buck is just a very small especially bow hunting.
It's the top of the pyramid.
Well, you could look at it that way, but regardless.
I'm not saying just in terms of like hierarchy. I'm just saying like in terms of amount of people. It's the smallest.
Yeah.
It's the 1% of 1%.
And so, and again, I'm with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with guiding, but like I think a lot of guys that use services like that, or whatever it is, maybe their reason for hunting is more tied up in time with family or a business, camaraderie, get together. Certainly, dude. And I think my dad values, and probably rightfully so. I don't know. We're just different in this way. He is way more about the camaraderie. This is why I've always said duck hunting is for him. Yeah. And I don't deer hunt to make friends. It's great that, right? It's great that we can have discussion and relationship, Jeremy and I's relationship through deer hunting is awesome. It's an amazing benefit that's come from it. but I deer hunt because I'm obsessed with the pursuit of that animal, you know, and that was kind of gifted to me from my uncle. And that right there is, we're such a small percentage. And so I have to, again, check myself and remember that people hunt for so many different kinds of reasons. A lot more people are hunting for reasons outside of why I do.
And we've expanded that. Like in Kansas, it'll be, you know, our dads and us. Like we have a deer camp. It's a deer camp, you know, and that's a fun aspect of the seriousness of the pursuit behind the scenes for a big buck out in Kansas.
And fortunately, Kansas is good enough that it's two birds with one stone. We're kind of guaranteed a good hunt, and we get to have the deer camp.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing about going back to the outfitter type camps, you know, a lot of the outfitters way back in the day and even currently, but, you know, they enjoyed having us out. But I tell you I got a thrill meeting people from different parts of the country. For the first time, and there might be 5, might be 6, might be 8 people in camp. But to share those stories and to share the passion that they have for whitetails as well. I may not have never met them before. And I really used to go and have so much fun, them asking me questions about this and that. And so sharing those hunting camps, really at the end of the day, we're all the same people. And, you know, we all enjoy the same experiences. And to hear it from somebody else's voice and through somebody else's eyes, I still get a kick out of it today. Even visiting with you guys today, it's just to hear your passion and your love and going on the elk hunts. That's what you do in the hunting camp. You talk about that love and the passion about the joys that you like.
Well, and I mean, that's why we started this podcast. You know, of course, we always want to keep learning. We want to hear opinion. But we started this podcast because we just want to talk about deer. We didn't really care. It's
like, our excuse to just basically force ourselves to talk about deer hunting, you know, a couple hours at it every week.
And it's funny because you'll get, you know, we have guys that, you know, live and die by the red moon, and that's how they're going to hunt deer. And we've got other guys who are just as successful who threw it in the garbage 25 years ago and never looked back at it, you know. And it's just, and it's so cool because you get all of these different opinions on stuff. We've got guys coming in from a research and science angle. You got guys that are purely just, they live in the woods. This is what they've seen, and that's the deer hunting Bible for them, you know. And it's
and you can tell, man, who's got. And obviously, we're not gonna call anybody out. It's totally fine, but it's obvious when somebody's ate up with it as much as you are. And in some cases, I mean, dude, when we had like Ben Rising and Mark Drury and these guys that just are obsessed with, you know, killing big whitetail bucks, and there's more of them out there too. It's just like, oh, dude, like it just it's just special to be around those types of people, you know. And we're honored to get to have them on our podcast. It's pretty cool.
Well, you know, I think one of the neat things for me is growing up with Mark and Terry and us coming through at the same time. You know, Ralph and Vicky Stancerello and the Kickies and you know, going back, and obviously a lot of them still on TV, but Lee and Tiffany, some of my favorite people, and in being able to hunt with them and going on to their farms, you know, in years past. It's that camaraderie that will always be there. You talk about Bill Winkie, you know, Winkie and I got started. I remember when he was more doing the outdoor writer thing and used to hunt with us on Realtree Outdoors and television. Greg Miller going back, Stan Potts. You know, for me, those memories, as you guys are younger, you'll be talking about the same thing 20, 25 years from now. The group that you came along with, and how much experiences you had, how much fun you had with each other. So talking that whitetail philosophy and strategies and stuff, it'll stay with you for as long as you live.
I do think it'll be interesting that now that you mentioned that, Bill and Tyler, obviously it'll kind of be us going through it. But, you know, I remember 5-6 years ago at like an ATA show, man, like I felt like I was in the bow hunting industry. And frankly, you know, where we sit today, we're not. It doesn't feel that way.
You see
at
these
least.
staples, like, I mean, granted, I know these things are still around, but the Outdoor Channel, you know, the ATA show, you know, these things that at one time I was like, that's our one time a year to unite with everybody. Like, we're standing together in this. And, you know, the Outdoor Channel we kind of covered earlier, but ATA this past year, man, granted, there's the COVID thing and all this, but it's like, man, it certainly seems like if there's a deathbed nearby, you know, it's
well, and I don't think it's our industry, right? Because I feel like the industry is strong. It just, I think it's these more traditional based things, the trade shows that we did, the TV network itself, and you know, and I think why I say that is because it's hard for somebody like me. Like when I came into the industry, that's what it was, and so when you got to those places, it was like, man, this is it. Like I can't believe I'm like inside of it after watching it from the outside. now we have to prepare ourselves that those things may not be there anymore. And that's where this industry kind of gets, a little loose, and like, where do we go with this thing? How do we keep it on track, basically?
Well, just do our best, get on the podcast every week and keep consistency.
It's one of the reasons we did it.
And we don't know where we're going, but sorry, Bill.
Well, and I tell you too, with COVID did change things, but along with that, over the last 5, 6, 7 years, just what we're doing right now, technology has changed us too.
Yeah.
Where we used to go to a lot of our licensees and major retailers throughout the country, what are we doing right now? We're doing
video
Zoom
calls.
Yeah, and so that technology has changed. We, I think we're like number 6 or 7 at SHOT Show. We've been there 38 years. Well, right now, everybody says, do we really need to go? I can still reach my accounts, digitally through Zoom or wherever we want to do it. I can have conference calls. I can bring my people in, you bring your people in. And of course, COVID too kind of sped that thing up too.
100%.
Nobody wanted to get out. So what's the next best thing? Hey, I'm gonna do this Zoom thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of a sudden, everybody's finding out, hey, this Zoom thing's working.
Yeah, it's working.
I don't have to travel this weekend. I can stay home with a family. My employees don't catch COVID.
Yep.
So it's just shifted a little bit, and then who knows what's going to happen 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. But technology has definitely changed the landscape for all industries. That's not ours.
Yep.
But how we communicate.
It's not bad though.
No.
It's not a bad thing.
No.
I think it just forces you to change and evolve.
Right.
And I think what I've learned just being in here a short amount of time is, even maybe in today's world more so than any other time, is nothing stays the same. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is constantly evolving and changing. And like you said, COVID has definitely, sped up that process, and some of the trade shows and events, maybe even some of the consumer shows more than it has in the past. So,
well, we know this, and we don't need to get too far off from this, but you have so many businesses around the country who will never open their doors up again. They're going to do it all by home. Everybody's working of a good percentage. In our industry, in our business right here, we have to see each other day to day, face to face. But there are a lot of businesses that can be successful with employees working at home. It's just our whole culture is changing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a wild atmosphere on it. And, again, I think that the industry and the business of the industry is super strong. In fact, COVID were probably some of the better years some of these businesses had seen, if you weren't brick and mortar necessarily.
As long as you could get product.
Yeah, or you could get product. And ultimately, as you start to look at how that kind of forms things, it really seems it seems like it's going to put more weight on kind of the things that we talked about earlier, Tyler, which is this digital media and digital social connections and all this other stuff, because that is now the way to connect with my consumer. And, if anything, that kind of makes me more scared, because we don't control those things. We don't control YouTube. We don't control Facebook. We don't control TikTok. And ultimately, I know there's a lot of business that are investing a lot of money and time into those things. If they get yanked or they go away, which a lot of our firearm brands are feeling that pain right now, where do you go?
Dude, you just reminded me. I went to a Dick's Sporting Goods the other day. I just my annual run. I was going to get my, my sent away stuff and whatever else, and they got rid of the hunting section.
All of it?
It's gone.
Yeah.
It is.
That's been coming down and down.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and
that started about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah,
it's a Pittsburgh-based business. I'm gonna go kick that door in. That's crazy.
There's nothing there for me anymore, dude.
Wow.
That's why you see a lot of stuff. I mean, and I think people will find a way to get their hunting fix or clothes or whatever. I mean, it will evolve where something, they create a platform, whether it's 365 or whether there are other apps.
Yeah,
people will find a way if there's a market for it, which I think we've seen there
100%.
is. I mean, it will figure itself out. But no, I mean, definitely, we have a lot of stuff wrapped up on YouTube with our digital shows, and then just our own marketing stuff that we do at Realtree. So it would definitely change the model.
Yeah.
If that were to happen, but I mean, it will sort itself out. I have faith in that.
And people are going to find the products they need. I mean, think about all of us probably 15 years ago. Can you imagine trying to thinking about buying a pair of pants online? Right. Now, I don't think I buy anything in the store. It's all online.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you don't go to stores. Man.
With a 13 and 16-year-old, we have an Amazon box outside our door every day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have a wife.
Y'all do too. You do.
I've got 5.
Even you 29 and 38-year-olds have boxes outside.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. When Jared and I were coming back from Kansas, they took pictures and they're sending us pictures of just
Recycling shop,
cameras and clothes and everything else out front. And I was like, well, at least you didn't see the box blinds.
Gotta have to ship that.
Delivered to an offsite location.
I sent those directly to the farm. I'll just get them there. Man, that's funny. But yeah, no, it is a wild piece of it. I guess, Bill, I know you got wrap up here, but one of the things that, first of all, again, appreciate you guys coming on. Really is an honor to have both of you guys on this thing. And Tyler, it's funny, man. Like I remember the first time I think I told Jared, I was like, holy shit, you see Tyler Jordan just posted on our podcast?
Dude, I think it was so funny. It was like a couple of years ago. I was like, I think Tyler Jordan just friended me on LinkedIn. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, and I think it was something when we had I think it's when we had Outdoor Allie DeAndrea on, and somebody made some stupid comment about her, of course. And I saw you post. I was like, look at this. Tyler's freaking posting on the podcast and stuff.
Good to see you being active on that stuff.
I can't remember what it was, but it pissed me off.
Somebody made just of course a stupid comment about which
I've gotten a chance to meet her and think the world of her.
Oh, dude, she's amazing.
Legit.
Yeah, awesome.
And I listened to the podcast with her and Jeff on there when y'all were at ATA.
Yeah.
But no, I watch a lot of, probably just because I'm in this world and I'm always looking at content and ways we can improve and get better and talent out there. But I spend a lot of time on YouTube. But this has been cool being on here because if I don't watch every one, I definitely watch pieces of every show that y'all put out there every week. So
that's awesome.
It's cool for us.
I view this as just really
well.
Good
Let me tell you. Again, I'm the old guy in the room, which we know, but our people here are really pulling for you guys. So I just want you to know that. And we got a lot of our guys and ladies in here that in our video department and elsewhere. So they watch you as well. So I just
that almost makes me emotional.
Wow. We need this. Our industry needs this.
Yeah,
our industry really does.
I was in the video hall right before I came out here, and I said, me and Dad are about to do a podcast, and one of the guys was like, "What podcast?" I said, "The HUNTR Podcast." He's like, "Dude, I was watching them last night." Because I watch them all the time.
That's funny.
I think it just that shows you just how.
Well, I do want to say one thing for us.
Yeah.
My daughter, his sisters play softball here in just a little bit, but I do want to dispel all rumors through your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Every time one of my kids, we get a nice deer off our farm, I want all listeners to hear me well. We have no high fence.
Mm-hmm.
So, I could get one too if I was in a high fence. I would challenge anybody and give them $1,000 if they can find a high fence on our farm.
Sometimes I wish there was a high fence.
Yeah.
Don't we all?
There's something I know y'all know this, but just for people listening, we'll shoot a deer and people will say something, but man, there's so many times we pass up a 3.5, 4.5-year-old deer and think, dude, they're going to be a giant next year. More times than not, I'd probably say 80% of the time, that deer is shot.
He's dead.
Mm-hmm. Even though we have a good amount of acreage here in Georgia, that deer leaves us all the time. And you'll see that deer on a Facebook group or something just weeks later. But 100%. That's just part of but that's just part of it. That's hunting.
That's why I don't think it's that's why I think these guys saying about the public stuff, it's like, listen, even with private land, there's no it's a fictitious boundary. This deer don't care.
Yeah, no. And I hope that person that did shoot it, man, I hope it puts the biggest smile on their face.
Man. For sure.
And I hope I think it's awesome. So
Tyler got a nice deer off our farm last year, and he was y'all may have seen the picture, and of course he had on North American whitetail, but that deer's picture last year before he shot it was 5 miles away. Somebody got a trail camera picture of him.
Holy cow.
Wow. He went through at least 2 or 3 different land properties.
Well, not that this is a crazy amount of distance for a deer to travel, but we had that deer the year before from really the end of July until October 2nd was the last picture we had of this deer. Then from October 2nd until the rest of the season, never saw him again. So I just kind of assumed, well, he's dead. Somebody shot him.
Yeah.
And then it turns out when he came back, I think I shot him on September 23rd. We were kind of in a little bit of a rush, thinking I probably only have 7-8 more days of
before he leaves us again.
Before he leaves, if he follows this same pattern. So But that's just the dynamics. No matter where you are, if you have free range, deer can travel and will travel anywhere.
Wow, man.
No doubt.
Last thing before you guys go, what you got coming up with Realtree? I know you guys just released a new waterfowl pattern, but dish us and dish the listeners. What's coming down the pipeline from Realtree this year?
Well, so we just happen to have it behind us right here, but this is our new Max 7 pattern. So we just released this last weekend at the Delta Waterfowl Convention. Kind of cool for me. This was really the first pattern I was kind of hands-on with Dad in this process.
Very cool.
Developing patterns. I think what maybe a lot of people don't know is that Dad is still involved with all of our patterns. We currently have 4 or 5 fishing patterns right now, a couple hunting patterns. So actually the background of this pattern behind us, after the season, I went to Mississippi to one of his friends' duck lodges, went out in the field and I took a few pictures. And I remember there was one picture. I was like, that could be part of a pattern. I may be crazy, but I feel like Dad's going to like this. Well, sure enough, it's really the starting point for this new pattern that we've had that, it's been 4 years in development, Max 7. So we're excited.
And we got a couple of new patterns yet to be introduced that have come along the way, but thank you guys for asking. We think things are good. Thank goodness for all of us. And our industry is healthy. COVID, actually, when we're all thinking the world was going to cave in on us, people took to the woods and to the lakes, and we're very thankful for that. And something too, for the viewers that hopefully grew up with Realtree and Realtree Outdoors all these years, and even the younger people, I can't thank them enough. We're very appreciative and very humbled. We started off. I started off with a 10x10 booth at the SHOT Show in 1986, and so dreams do come true. And it shows if you have enough willpower and belief in what you're doing, things can happen good. But I got no silver spoon. I grew up with the Druys and the Winkies and Jim Shockey. We all came along through at the same time. The Harold Knights, the David Hells. I wouldn't swap any of those times for anything. And so it's very appreciative for what this industry has allowed us to do.
Yeah. And I'll say this real quick, just about another part of our business that has taken up it's really become a whole new department, but our fishing business has done well too. And those are patterns that, are constantly being turned around every year to 2 years, more so than the hunting, where the hunting patterns traditionally have a 5 to 7 year window in the market. So the fishing part of our business, the different pro staff we have on the fishing side, it's done really well.
Well,
I can't thank you. I got a softball game to go to, and my daughter's a starting pitcher. And but I hope you'll have us again.
Oh, no problem, guys. We appreciate it. Truly an honor, and thanks for all Realtree does for this industry and for the hunting community. I don't think enough people realize from the influence and generosity that you guys have for a lot of our conservation groups as well. It goes a long way for all of us who love the outdoors.
We certainly appreciate it, and just let's all be positive about our industry. We love it, and then we need to respect it.
Yes, sir.
We'll have to get together after deer season.
There you go, boys.
We love it.
I love it.
I'm thinking during deer season.
Oh, okay.
Fine, let's give them a
recap. By the time we hit December, we're pretty dried out up in the Midwest and Northeast. We wouldn't mind coming south for something down there.
Well, I want to see how that elk hunt goes. I hope we're in shape. Could you go on the mountain?
Hey, I was on the stepper at Planet Fitness with 100 pounds on my back last night. Nice. And I'm just getting over COVID from last week, so we're elk strong. Yeah.
Good. Glad you're better.
Well, again, we appreciate everything.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it so much.
All right, guys.
Thank y'all.
See ya.
Wow.
Very cool.
Yeah. I mean, super honor. I mean, Tyler and I have talked back and forth a couple times trying to get this thing together. And then we were flying back from Kansas and he texted me and he said, yeah, I'm good to go Thursday. He's like, hey, Dad would like to be on too. I'm like, what?
Yes.
Yes, for sure.
Well, dude, I've always been super impressed with Tyler's hands-on approach. Dude, he's always commenting on people's stuff.
Well, dude, reaching out. I mean, and this is all respect.
What
to
humble
Tyler.
guy too for
I mean, you're Bill Jordan's son, and you're walking into a position at Realtree as Bill Jordan's son, that. There's a lot of weight there to carry. But yeah, I mean, I think his he's always positive about stuff. Yeah, the engagement side of things has been really good. I think from an investment, like a Realtree investment side, I think they've done a really good job picking some of the right partners to invest in.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, it's a whole new space there to really tie into.
Well, dude, just from a son standpoint, like if I know he's not on the podcast anymore, but he'll hear it. I'll pay Tyler a compliment in that, like, I think there's a lot of maturity in seeing how he gives his dad space to still
100%.
He's the OG, run it. And granted, Bill would probably take it anyways because it was his company, but you can see how Tyler backs off and lets him have his piece there. And it's cool to see that because I've experienced that with my dad
and I
too.
think even as Bill from a dad, and because I wouldn't know, like, right, flying blindly here is it very much so, Tyler probably had to kind of prove himself. It's not like Bill said, hey, let's do these patterns together. I mean, you hear him. This Max 7 is basically like the first pattern Tyler's really been leading from the start on with Bill. And so, like, those kind of things are like, listen, people probably are quick to judge and say, oh, Tyler Jordan, he's probably, handed everything. And I would have to believe that Bill makes him work for it.
No doubt.
But it makes him a better guy overall, better husband, and even from the hunting aspect, I'm sure, it's made him a better hunter because I'm sure Bill's just not handing out, the best spots and the best farms across the board.
Absolutely. Well, and he, Bill even said it, he's just embraced the teaching aspect, to be able to invest into like his kids and certainly Tyler. And I'm sure, like you said, it's not handing it all over. Here you go. Easy as cake. It's here you go. Work for it.
And the crazy thing is, and obviously, like, I'm nobody, so I'm not as worried about my kids. But I mean, you could see Bill's very protective of his kids.
Yeah.
And knowing how harsh the critique is in this industry, especially. And that's one of the things that any parent is going to deal with here. If your kids are going to be hunters, essentially, is that, listen, there's going to be some stuff said online that, it's either going to hurt their feelings or they're going to have tough skin and ignore it.
Yeah.
But there's also a level there to where it's like, I've seen some of the things that people say about Taylor Drury and some of these other daughters of those people. And, that can't be easy for guys like Mark or Tim Wells or whoever else.
Yeah. Well, and it's a balance too. I mean, dude, some comments just aren't worth reading, and other ones provide valuable
Everybody
feedback, so.
on here is worth reading.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Even stupid ones.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. That was really cool. First father-son duo on the podcast. Probably not the last. And really cool to have Tyler and Bill on there. I mean, that Realtree, like I said, what can you say about Realtree Outdoors? Like, it
what
is
more
the
do you
original.
want, dude? Yeah.
Realtree Monster Bucks.
That's it.
It's probably going to be the title of this podcast. Realtree Monster Bucks with Bill and Tyler Jordan. All right?
There you go.
Little SEO play there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool. Well, we appreciate everybody listening to this episode of HUNTR Podcast, number 87. And we will catch you guys next week.
Later.
Take me